Hey guys, what's up? The Dreamcast. The Dreamcast is one of the most underrated consoles of all time and one that is a personal favorite to many millions of gamers out there. And guess what? It does have quite a bunch of RPGs. In fact, when it comes to JRPGs, it had quite a lot. But unfortunately, the minority of them were released outside Japan. Most of them stayed in Japan, sadly. That sucks, but hey, at least we got some pretty good titles, I'd say, and we're about to meet them all. So, let's begin. Alright, first is Evolution, the World of Sacred Device. Evolution is a turn-based RPG with some roguelike elements since it focuses on exploring dungeons and completing them. However, story-wise, it strays off those kinds of games to become a full classic-like RPG. The ESRB branded the game for teens, as it says on the cover, but since the story is very childish and the gameplay mechanics are very easy to understand, I'd say this could be either a great JRPG for kids or simply an easygoing entry for newcomers to the genre. Regardless, it's a pretty decent game, among the best in the Dreamcast and surely underrated or even forgotten, considering it was the very first JRPG released for the console and one that was quickly overshadowed by some other great games that we'll get to later. Next is Elemental Gimmick Gear, also known as Egg. This game is pretty much the same case. Forgotten, ignored, overshadowed. It's an action RPG in which you go around inside this egg-looking suit. It takes story elements from ancient technology cliches, mysterious boy found inside the robot, or rather the mecha found inside some ruins. But it works actually great! It's a really interesting concept, as a matter of fact. Another interesting stuff is that the exploration areas are totally hand-drawn, including towns. So for being yet another one of the very first RPGs for the system, I'd say it's quite unique. The game's actually not that rare, but it is a little expensive, around the $70 range, and I'm not sure if it's a must-have, but I will definitely say it's worth looking into. Next is Time Stalkers. This is, unfortunately, considered as one of the worst, if not the worst JRPG for the system. It was a very ambitious project from Climax Entertainment, same guys who created Landstalker for the Sega Genesis, which includes appearances from characters from their previous games, working a little bit like a crossover, but that failed miserably in the market. Now, the game is a roguelike RPG, although you move freely here, but inside the same classic mechanics from that subgenre. Battles are turn-based, and as you can see, they look fun, but are not. Those empty spaces you see up there are for the monsters you capture to fight alongside you, and trust me, that's also not fun. Yes, this game is terrible, not one of the worst I've played of course, but definitely bad. Coming up, it's Evolution 2: A Far Off Promise. The long-awaited sequel of the only decent turn-based RPG on the system so far, which was still getting most of the attention back then, before the real JRPG monsters arrived the following years. Everything is exactly the same, being a sequel but also a story divided in two parts, so maybe this could be considered as one game cut in two games? Well, to be honest with you, I've never played these two. The one I played back in the day was Evolution Worlds for the GameCube, which is allegedly a butchered version of this pair combined together into one single game. I liked it actually. I think it's a hidden gem of some sorts, but I don't know if the original games are superior, so if you played them both and the GameCube version, let me know in the comment section below. Record of Loras War, Advent of Cardus. I talked about this game before since it took a while for it to be localized to North America, being one of the last JRPGs to be released here. Well, by looking at it, you probably realize how this does not look Japanese style at all. But yep, it was made in Japan. It's an action RPG with dungeon crawling elements based on the classic novels from the late 80s and the anime from the early 90s. Now, this is one of those games that I just don't like, but it's also not bad. I wouldn't recommend this to anybody, but that's just me. Maybe some people out there liked it? I don't know. All I know is that this is the only Loras War game to be released outside Japan, obscured and overshadowed as well by the last 3 JRPGs for the Dreamcast, which I'm about to present. And the first one is Grandia 2. Yeah, we're all familiar with this one of the 3 must-have RPGs for the system, and certainly among the best. This is the original version, of course, later ported to the PS2 and PC, soon to be released as a remaster for the Switch, along with the first Grandia. This is a great JRPG, a classic from the early 2000s, completely superior in my opinion to every single previous title in this list, with a great story, a cool cast of characters, interesting battle mechanics, overview exploration, and a very decent soundtrack. I don't think I need to explain more about this game since it's pretty popular. Certainly no masterpiece, but good enough to be called one of the best for the Sega Dreamcast. Next is Skies of Arcadia. This one, just like Grandia 2, is yet another one of the best in the system, and one that everybody mentions whenever Dreamcast RPGs become a topic. Even though I only played this version for a couple of hours, because I played the port for the GameCube for the most part, I have to admit it is indeed one good turn-based RPG with a cool story and interesting mechanics. People have overly praised this game, however, and I see absolutely nothing that special, but compared to most titles in this list, it's definitely one of the best. So give Skies of Arcadia a chance if you haven't, because after all, it's a classic for a very underrated console that died too soon. And last but not least, Phantasy Star Online. Finally, we arrive at one of the games that revolutionized online RPGs, which also has an offline mode, by the way, with its own plot and characters. Of course, it's not as fun as playing online, but still nice to play either way. This game was so successful that it not only spawned an updated version the following year in a physical release as well, but was also ported to the Xbox and the GameCube. Well, of course we all know the Dreamcast was dying back then, so companies, including Sega, were running to whoever was opening their doors. But that doesn't change the fact that they released a bunch of really great titles, some of them highly underrated, and some others wonderful and highly successful, such as Phantasy Star Online. Before all the previous titles in this list, Seventh Cross was released back in 1998. I'm not sure if this is an RPG, but it's definitely worth checking out for how weird it is. So that's it, guys. That's the entire JRPG list for the Dreamcast, at least the ones that came out of Japan. Now, I didn't cover Western RPGs or any of those other homebrew RPGs that had been released over the past 3 or 4 years. And when it comes to Western RPGs, the Dreamcast didn't fare well at all. There's only like 3 or 4, and most of them are those kinds of games in which you you always say, is this really an RPG? It's more like an action-adventure. I don't know. The only one that I found that is considered as an RPG is called Dragon Riders Chronicles of Bern. And I didn't want to cover that game because, first of all, it's atrocious. It's really bad. If you want to look for it and watch some gameplays or whatever, be my guest, but it's really bad. And the others are like, I don't know if I should call them an RPG or not. Just like with the Seventh Cross. So if you've played that game, the Seventh Cross Evolution, let me know in the comment section below and let us discuss if this is an RPG or not. In my opinion, I don't know, man. I have no idea. It does have a lot of RPG elements, but there's just something about it that feels off, as if it wasn't really an RPG. But anyway, that's it for this video, guys. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and share this video with your friends. See you next time.